Hey everyone, we welcome you to this Q&A session with members of IEEE SBM itself who have either been placed or worked as interns in Microsoft. So let's get to know them.
Our guests for today include Anjalika Sahu is a fourth-year IT student at MIT Manipal. She has been successfully placed in Microsoft and was also the ex-vice chairperson of IEEE student branch Manipal. We also have with us Shubham Sachdeva. He is a fourth-year CCE student and received a pre-placement offer by Microsoft. He also served as the CS Tech Head of IEEE student branch Manipal. Last but not least, we have Shriti Chandra. Shriti Chandra is a third-year student at MIT Manipal and is pursuing ECE. She has been offered an internship at Microsoft after performing excellently in their Engage program. She also serves as the current dev head of IEEE student branch Manipal. Welcome, man, you guys.
Hey guys, how you all doing?
All good, all good.
Same.
Shubham,
Okay, so
how are you?
All good. I was on
Nice.
mute, I didn't realize.
yeah. Okay, guys. So before we begin with formal questions, I'd just like to ask all of you about how you guys feel about getting into Microsoft. You know, it is a proper dream job for so many people. So how does it just feel to having reached that point?
Okay, I'll go. So like after you've gone through all of this process and everything, it feels more of a relief than happiness. Like what it seems to you on the outside, like we must be really happy. We are just relieved that the entire process and everything is over, because honestly, like it's been too much stress going through the constant preparation and interviews, and it just after it's done, you just feel a rush, like it's over and you can like finally enjoy for some time before you actually have a secured position. So yeah, that's about it.
So it must
Yeah,
feel like a giant weight off your shoulder, right?
definitely, definitely.
It's more of a relief than joy, basically.
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay, so we'll be starting with the questions. Anjalika, this is for you. So
Yep.
how was your experience during the placement season?
All right. So my experience during the placement season wasn't long enough because Microsoft was the first company which came for placement. So, and it came very early, like when the placement season didn't start also properly. So Microsoft was the first company and I got placed in that. So during that time, it was like I was very nervous because that was the first company, and then there was this thing like OT ka jo shortlist that came on I guess 7th August, and then they had their interviews on from 11th August. So this timeline, the days of 4 days, I had to study, and I was like, "कि ये 4 दिन पढ़ना है," so that was very like full of anxiety and everything. Most of the companies have their interviews after like giving out the shortlist. They have the interviews the next day. So, people have just like 6 to 7 hours and they study, they give it their all, and they're like, "कि जो भी होगा in 6 7 hours में I'll study and give it." But for Microsoft, it was like 3 to 4 days full of anxiety. So that thing I prepared very well. I studied whole day properly. But then when I got placed, so after that was nothing. So when the placement season actually started, I was free only completely. So this was my experience, chota sa.
So you like got into the first company. That must be exciting. So like what was the strategy for preparing, the test preparation and the interviews?
All right. So when you think about you don't study for like कि Amazon के लिए I will prepare like this, or Microsoft के लिए I will prepare like this. You have a general strategy, you practice questions daily, and then you basically make sure that you have a very like you understand every topic well, and you are able to solve all the coding questions from every topic. Now for Microsoft, I knew in their online test they mostly ask questions on hashing strings, arrays mostly. They don't go into graphs, etc. So for Microsoft, especially, my strategy was to study arrays, strings, hashing, etc. for Microsoft ka OT. So for online test, yeah, that was my strategy.
That's nice. I'll keep it in mind.
Moving on to you, Shubham. I would like to start by asking you, not many people get pre-placement offers. And I would just like to ask you, what was your strategy for getting one?
Sorry, my net is bad. Can you repeat once?
Okay, yeah, sure. My question to you was that not a lot of people get pre-placement offers. So I would like to ask you about your strategy towards getting one.
So it actually depends on a lot of stuff you do as a part of like in your entire internship duration. Like most of the time you'll be subjected to multiple rounds of interviews. Like the number of interviews also depends upon the type of project and everything you've done depends on your team. So, but like the interviews are comparative lower level. Mainly the interaction with the people associated with your project and and your dedication, your interest in asking doubts and everything, being dedicated to your project, that helps. So mainly the manager's feedback and your project feedback and the demos, how you go. So it depends on that basically. So I just try to give my all. Like I didn't have many more priorities over that. Like obviously. So yeah, so the manager feedback, like when the manager recommends a few rounds of interviews, the number of interviews depends upon like how you did your project well. So yeah, based on that, I was able to get the.
Okay. I would also like to ask you about how would you suggest for someone to prepare for online tests and interviews that are held by Microsoft?
So my strategy for preparation was a little bit different than like what most of my peers would say. It's like I was never too inclined towards the problem solving and DSA part, so like I only did as much as like I only did whatever would help me clear the online tests and in the interviews I tried to steer towards my core skills. Like I started backend development at a very early stage, so I had multiple projects. So I tried to so like I think that helped me a lot, and I put credit to that for my selection rather than the problem solving and coding part because I was never too strong in it from the beginning.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll be moving on to Shriti. What will be your position in Microsoft?
Shruti, you're muted.
I'm really sorry about that. I'll be a summer intern, a software developer intern.
Okay, that's nice. I was actually curious. How did you find out about the Engage program? Like, could you tell us a bit more about it?
I actually found out about the Engage program through campus. We got a notice, I think, in the month of June or something when the registration started. And yeah, through LinkedIn as well.
So, could you tell us a bit more about this program, what it contains, and everything?
Sure. Microsoft and a lot of other companies put out hackathons or programs like this to recruit people instead of the traditional OT system. Specifically for Microsoft Engage, they focus a lot more on your development skills or your skills as a software developer more so than the traditional DSA route. That worked out well for me because as Shubham, I'm not really that into the DSA or the CP scene. I would rather much more focus on the developer scene. And I also started out with backend at a very, very nascent stage, I think in my first semester itself, and a little before that too. And yeah, it worked out well for me because Microsoft Engage focuses on your developer skills, and we were asked to create a prototype of Microsoft Teams itself, in which you had to connect two people on video call and audio, and those two people should be able to communicate. A lot of my friends who were in the Engage program as well went way above and beyond the basic feature requirement. I did as well. And yes, the Engage program turned out to be very, very educative and informative, and we learned a lot as well, in addition to the internship and everything else that followed.
That's great.
Thank you, Shruti. Moving forward, the next question is applicable to all three of you. So I would just like to ask all three of you, you are all part of IEEE, so I just want to know, do you think that the projects which are done as part of club activities or the ones which you might have done as part of student projects, Do you think they help in any way towards building your career and getting you opportunities in placement?
I mean, yeah, definitely the projects you'll do
I think
under student. Yeah, go ahead, Shivam.
Yeah, I think I can take that up. So, as part of the management committee itself, we did multiple projects for IEEE, like doing a Telegram bot and developing the entire website and stuff like that. So that actually showcases your skill, and that actually proves that whatever you've written on your portfolio is actually like it's a solid proof that you've worked towards it. So it helps a lot actually. So as I told, like projects give you an edge. So be it for a student project, for a club, or for anything, if you have done something, that will reflect very, very high on your portfolio.
Okay, thank you. Circling back to you, Angelika, I would really like to know what are the different rounds that Microsoft has? Also, is there a specific type of question which is frequently asked in these rounds? While at the same time, I would also like to know about the selection criteria that Microsoft has.
All right. So, Microsoft, they had their online test first. So, I guess CSD, these branches that were like eligible to give the online test for Microsoft. So the online test was pretty easy. They had this one question on bit manipulation, and the second question was debugging. So since the questions were easy, since the questions were easy, so the time taken to solve the question matters. Plus maybe your CG, because when there are like let's say 200 people who solve both the questions, which is in OT, so there has to be another criteria which the company is going to use to shortlist like let's say 30 to 40 candidates from those 200 who solve both the questions. So I guess the time taken by the people to complete both the questions was taken into account by the company. So I did both the questions in like 20 to 25 minutes at max because they were pretty easy. And if you have been solving DSA, you could do it. So yeah, I was selected, and I guess 46 people were selected by Microsoft. So yeah, then as I said, on 7th August the list came, and from 10th August, yeah, we had our interview scheduled. So Microsoft has 3 rounds. They've always been having 3 rounds as the interview in the interview process. So my first round was taken by SDE 3, I guess. So I was asked 3 coding questions. I was asked to execute them. Now, since I had Python written as my one of my technical skill in my resume, so the questions which I was like 3 questions he asked, they weren't very easy, they weren't very tough, but they were like basically logic building. So I wrote the code once, and then he asked me to optimize it again. So I did that. So in all the codes, he asked me to do that while I was executing them. And then since I wrote Python in my resume, he asked me to execute the same code in Python also. Now, since Python helps you to write a code in a more organized manner, right? Like let's say in CPP, if you're writing 5 lines of code, you can shorten the 5 lines of code into 1 line in Python. So he wanted to see that am I able to do that or not? So that I was able to do in both the questions. So apart from code execution, he asked me lots of OS, obviously because Windows. Then he asked me lots of oops. Uh, then a bit of DBMS he asked me, very conceptual questions. Now, it was basically with the first interview, it was a rapid fire round for me, like he was asking XYZ question, and if I was able to answer, he would like immediately move to the next question. And let's say the next question I don't know, I'm taking like let's say 2 seconds to think about the question. So he was like, "Do you know the answer for this question?" I was like, "No, but let me think." So he was like, "If you don't know, it's fine." So what I think about this whole thing is that they are not like finding those candidates who know all the answers. They are just looking at you like, do you have a growth mindset? Are you willing to learn? Do you have a logic building skill? If you have those qualities, then they will like you rather than you answering all the questions directly. So this was my first round, and it went pretty well. So I was pretty confident I'll get the call for the second round. Second round was taken by a program manager. So she asked me quick sort code. So she asked me sorting algorithms. So I said yes, and then she was like, which is the best one and why? I said quick sort. So I explained why. Then she was like, execute, like write the code for it. So I wrote the code for it. I made some mistakes, but then since I was explaining the complete code to her, so I executed it. All the test cases ran. So we had a discussion over quicksort. It was a discussion rather than a question answer session with her. Then the next question was designing tic-tac-toe game. So I didn't have to write the code for it. She was like, just write the pseudo code for it. So then she gave me three levels. Like first was easy level where always anyone can win. Then second level was always the user wins, and third level was always the computer wins. So these were the three levels, and I was basically asked to write a pseudocode. I couldn't build the complete logic for the tic-tac-toe game, but I could give her the partial logic, and she seemed happy because I was like able to build the logic from scratch. So when this was done, she asked me lots of OOP questions, and the OOP questions were basically real life based scenarios, like questions. She didn't ask me very technical stuff, all related to how you can use the technical stuff to real life. So that was her part. She didn't ask me OS much. So that was my second round. First and second round both were around 50-50 minutes. And then the third round was mostly project based. She asked me, she was a like program manager as well, and she was at the very top level at Microsoft, as she told her position to me. And then we had a very broad discussion over my project. She was very impressed with one of my projects because she had never seen that project anywhere on the internet as well. So we had a long discussion of 25 to 27 minutes, I guess, on my project. And she was very, very impressed with my project. And since I did the complete project on my own from scratch, so I was discussing with her. So that basically impressed her a lot. So after that, she asked me system design, not system design, I would say, but then DSA, like system designing using DSA question. I had to design a multi-level parking lot. So there she asked me 10 to 12 mini questions where I had to tell her which data structure I would use and what time complexity it would have, etc., etc. So that my third round was basically a discussion with her where she was telling me, I was telling her my approach, then she was correcting it, then we had a discussion over time complexity. The third round went pretty well for me. I was happy with the risk. I was very impressed with the lady who took my interview. So I was like, "कि अगर नहीं भी हुआ." So I had a very nice experience giving interview to all the three interviewers. So I was very happy. So yeah, these were the three rounds.
Okay. Thank you, Angelica. And if it's not too much, can you please elaborate on the project?
Yeah. So I had 5 projects listed on my resume. So the project she asked was basically it's fraud detection. So there's this thing called Benford's law. If you'll search on the internet, you will get to know about it. So Benford's law is used for fraud detection. So let's say if you have a database where you have lots and lots of numbers which are continuous numbers. Let's say there are 5-digit numbers and they are continuous numbers. So you can detect which entries are fraudulent. Like let's say there are transactions by many customers from a bank. So using Benford's law, you can detect what are the fraudulent transactions using the law. So basically, I wrote the code for that from scratch. Now she was impressed because the code for Benford's law wasn't available on the internet. So I basically studied about it a lot. What is it? What it is? What it states? And then I wrote the complete code. So yeah, that's completely about it.
Thank you. So, from my understanding, it seems like what Microsoft are looking for is much more of in-depth knowledge rather than superficial stuff, and um, knowledge that you have such a good understanding of that you can recount on your fingertips.
Yeah, and as the mission and vision of Microsoft also states that they want every individual and every organization to reach their full potential. So they do that completely. I mean, most of the companies just say out loud their mission and vision statement and they don't fulfill that. But Microsoft, as I saw, they do that. It is in their doings as well. So yeah, that's
Okay.
a plus point
Okay.
in the company.
I would also like to ask you, you landed the position at Microsoft without doing an internship there beforehand. So do you think that you not doing that an internship at Microsoft did it have any effect on you landing that position?
All right, so Microsoft came for placement process in our college. So they had this thing completely, like they stated this thing clearly that the people who had got an internship from Microsoft, they cannot apply for the placement process at Microsoft. So like I just got the opportunity. I didn't like basically there was no thing I did to get the company come to my college. They just came for placement process. I just had to fill out the form, and since I was eligible for the company, so I was able to give the online test for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Shubham, we'll be moving on to you. Now, I've like seen a lot of videos pertaining to work life in Google, Microsoft, and they look like so cool to me. So, like, could you elaborate on your work experience in Microsoft?
Yeah, so it's actually gonna be better than whatever you've seen on the internet and everything. I also like saw that and expected it to be good, but like it actually turned out better only. So as a fresher or an intern, like you are given the full attention as an SD1 or even SD2 gets. And we were in the same meeting as as the partner directors of engineering, and we reported direct. We could talk anytime to anyone in the higher position, like without any hesitation. Like it's very chill and it's very friendly. There's no formality and anything. So and like the people you're assigned to with the project, you get a manager and a mentor who's with you constantly working. Like anytime you have a doubt or anything you want regarding anything basically, and they're like at least my team, my mentor, my manager, they were ready to help me even at 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was very chill. It didn't feel like it was an employment environment or something. It's a very friendly culture. It's very nice.
Okay, so it was obviously you had like super good mentors. So, could you tell us what you learned during your internship?
I can't tell you much about like the project I worked on, but like the thing is, many people ask me like, what are the prerequisites or what do you have to learn before you join an internship and everything. So I just want to clarify on that there's not a whole lot you can actually prepare for your internship, because like most of their software is also internal, and you get ample of time to like get familiarized with the code base, and then like learn the technologies. You get resources and time from scratch to learn anything which is required for your project. So like it, you get to learn everything there itself, so you don't need to go with anything beforehand.
Okay,
That is
that's
what
good
I would
to know. I
want
have
to
a
clear.
chance, I guess.
Okay, moving back to you, Shruti. So when I entered IEEE in the orientation meeting, I was told about the Engage program and about you. So I did not actually know what the Engage program was. I had to look it up, and when I did feel incredibly jealous. So I would really like to ask you about your project that you did as part of the Engage program.
Sure. The Engage program, I was lucky enough to get very good mentors, first of all. So Microsoft gives you or allots you two mentors for a group of 5 to 6 people each. One of my mentors was a SD1. She had been at Microsoft for 1 to 2 years. She would mostly be 2 or 3 years senior to me. She was from IGTTU. Another one of my mentors was a senior product manager who had been with the company for about 14, 15 years. He held a very, very secure position in Microsoft and had been at the company for very, very long. Another thing that I've really, really observed from Microsoft is they really hold on to their company principles and they expect you to as well, which is really good. About my project, we were told or asked, or the basic motive was to build, as I said, a communication platform through which two people could video call and talk and communicate. As a lot of my friends did, we went way beyond the basic features And as for my project, I built a communication platform, which included group video calls. You could connect on audio, you can connect on chat, you could send emojis, you could send files, videos, sends, you could come on and have group chats, unlimited history or chat history. You could store your data, you could store your video calls, you could have an anonymous feature, everything that you possibly could have hoped for in a better version of Teams, because we do use Teams in our college, don't we, for everything we do. So any feature that I wanted to see in my own classes, I tried to implement it. And fortunately for me, I could get to a decent number of features at the end of the day. We were also thrown surprise feature or a special feature in the last week of the program, which was to basically integrate a chat component. So for example, as in Teams, if you're chatting on a video call and if you're already added to the Teams or the group in Teams, even if you're not on the video call, you can access the chat, right? Which means the chat database is synced. Whatever chat or whatever text you send on the video call is already sent back to the text group. So that is something that we had to implement in the last week. And unfortunately for me, I had implemented an exactly opposite feature as something that I had wanted to have. So for even for taking interviews, even in clubs or anything as such, more often than not, you don't want to create a team for everything, which is a bit of a hassle because you have to add people and then you have to keep subtracting them. And if you send any questions on the chat, you'll have to create another team because the questions can't be accessed by the next candidate. So for that, or to avoid that, I created the chat in anonymous forums. By anonymous, I mean that you did not have to have signed in user access to the application. So for that, my chat was anonymous and none of the history was actually saved while on video call. And I had to reframe and recode the entire feature in the last 3 days, I suppose. So yes, it was a lot of fun and was a lot of learning in the 4 weeks that I had.
Well, in hindsight, we should have had this interview on your app, but it does seem, it does seem like something which is extremely cumbersome and requires a lot of work. So I would like to know what motivated you to keep on working at it, and how was your overall experience with this?
I'll answer one of your previously asked questions first, that whether clubs help or not. Both the other panelists on this video call are my own mentors, and they have helped me through the past year. I've learned a lot through them. And yes, clubs do help a lot. As for the motivation part, I genuinely love doing dev, and that is something I've learned from IEEE as well, from my mentors, from other board members from last year. And that just is something that sticks through with you throughout whatever your projects you do. As for motivation, to be honest, I just love doing it. There, you don't really need motivation for that. The project came towards or was brought together just as it was going through. And yeah, it was basically just fun. It didn't really acquire any extra effort or any extra motivation on my part.
Yeah, thank you. I do feel the same way about most of my subjects. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll be moving on to another common question. So, as you all are software development engineers, I would like to know what exactly does a SDE do in your opinion? Like, what do you all do?
I'm yet to learn that. I'll let the other two answer first.
Yeah, I guess Shubham can answer the question properly because he has interned at MS.
Okay, so like it's really the name explains it all. So anything you're using, any software you're using, like we're using Teams for this call right now. So our role, or like any software development engineer working on Teams, his role would be to like design and develop an aspect, a feature for the software, which like enables productivity or like what goes behind the scenes with respect to the scalability of the platform you can use or whatever functionality it serves. So all of that is assigned to a software engineer, more or less. So I worked on platform that is also a web hosting software, which where I had to develop a feature and like I got the insights to how it works and how product is formed or a new functionality or feature is added.
Ah, well, thanks to you all, we are able to do virtual calls, especially in Corona. So, I would like to ask Angelika right now. Um, so, what was your role? Like, what will be your role in the company?
Yeah, so my role would be software development engineer only. So I will
Right,
be SD1 at Microsoft itself. Yeah.
that's nice. You were also the vice chairperson of IEEE SBM, right? And so, how would you
Yes.
describe your journey in this organization, and like in what manner has it contributed to shaping your career?
Um, I mean, the major chunk of my status right now it is influenced by IEEE. I would say I cannot imagine my college life without telling okay, I was a part of IEEE SBM. So my journey has been full of ups and downs in IEEE. I would say I was a working committee member in my first year, then promoted to Mancom member, then to vice chairperson of IEEE SPM. So I wasn't much technically active in IEEE. Rather, I was into management and organizational side of IEEE SBM. That's why like I was the vice chairperson into the executive board of IEEE SBM. So it helped me a lot, to be very honest. It taught me management skills, to manage a whole lot of people. Then it helped me with my communicational skills, with my leadership qualities, with organizational skills as well. Then it helped me technically as well because then, like there are a lot of people you see who are doing something or the other thing into tech, right? Either they are doing app development or they're web development they're doing, or they're doing ML, because these are the domains which are there into IEEE SBM, or research and innovation. So that helps you to pick up whatever you like, right? Like when you are into WC of IEEE SBM, you can choose whatever you like, or if you don't like anything, you can just ask your mentors or your seniors who are into managing committee. You can ask them that what we are supposed to do into this domain. So since it is a technical organization, IEEE, so it helps you a lot to shape your career, because all those skills, all those technical skills which you will learn from your first year itself, those skills will help you in your future. As Shubham and as Shriti said, they will help you to do projects. And those projects, you can talk about those projects in your interviews. So if the interviewer is happy with the project that you stated, then you will be selected by that company. So all in all, it is all connected, and all in all, you just have to keep, giving your 100% to everything, and you just should not lose any opportunity, any opportunity which your club basically gives you, because at the end of the day, in any way or the other, it is going to help. Be it, let's say you all are right now at your home, so you do not have, promoted the, you haven't done that info desk. I don't know if you all know about the info desk or not. The first
I've
years,
heard about
Kushagr
it.
and Shreen. Yeah, so basically that basically involves folding your posters and then stopping people who are in a rush and then asking them to register for the event, and then they have to come to the event. So all these small things people find very irritating, but they help you in a way or the other. You can make friends, if not anything else, you know. So clubs basically, or organizations, help you a lot to open up as a person, to explore what your true identity is, to shape your personality, and every other phrase I will use which is going to motivate, because you should give your 100% to whatever technical clubs are offering any day. So yeah, similarly, it helped me also to shape my career a lot.
Well, I'm glad to be a part of this club after listening to you.
Moving on to you, Shubham. Um, so I would like to ask you, like, how should an individual decide which companies he or she should apply for?
So like I'd say this decision should only matter based on like where you are now in terms of like wanting to achieve so if you're talking about an internship position, then you can be a little choosy because you have a lot of time to apply elsewhere and you can get better stuff and like that. But if you're talking about the final placement season, you cannot be too choosy about it. So basically, it's in something where luck is a major factor. So you need to get the opportunity that's coming away. So anyway, like they say, like a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. So basically, what I'd say is that an average opportunity is worth taking over just hopes of getting a high-end opportunity, even if you are sure of it, because there's a luck factor which is like highly which is a high dependence for these kind of roles. So you cannot be too. So what I'd say is you cannot be too choosy about it in the final placement season. But for internship, you can skip a few companies if you're not comfortable or if you think they're beneath you, because in internship you have a lot of time to explore and develop in other areas as well.
Okay. Well, this is the first time I've heard the word average opportunity, and I will make it a part of my vocabulary. So I would also like to ask you, apart from technical skills, which you learn as part of your course, what other skills should a person possess in order to, let's say, get in a favorable position with a company like Microsoft?
So like there's not a lot of stuff that can be judged in an hour-long interview. So like they're not concerned about anything apart from your technical skills in the interview perspective, but like there are some practices, like some behavioral practices which may help in acing that, but are not absolutely necessary. You need to be straightforward. Like you need to not bore the interviewer. You need to think out loud whatever is going through your mind. Like be straightforward with what you don't know and like if you need a hint and stuff like that. So overall, some conversational and behavioral practices may help, but I don't think that's absolutely necessary. Again, I'd like to emphasize that any core skill or project will boost you a lot more than you'd think.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, so Shriti, I'm also from an electronics branch. I was like super excited when I heard about you getting into Microsoft. Could you give me some tips onto how to balance, the course related stuff and engage program preparation?
To be honest, I didn't really prepare for the Engage program. There's nothing to prepare for it. They give you a name, you have to build the project. If they do it similarly next year, which is not a compulsion, it'd probably be the same thing. As for balancing, let's say EC and Dev, um, I think you just have to go for it and go for the points or the places or the factors that you care about, more so than, let's say, what your branch directs you to. For example, to be very, very honest, my branch and what I do not clash in any way. So for EC specifically, yes, I do have to study separately or put in effort separately. Let's say when exams come in or when I'm just listening to classes in general. And as I replied before as well, for Dev, that's just something that I'm excited about in general. So it doesn't really require me that much effort. Alaksi, I would say. And yeah, if you put in equal time for both of them, I'm very, very sure you're able to balance it.
Well, so since you're interested in dev, but your branch is related to electronics, which part do you want to continue with in the future?
Dev.
That's great.
Short and sweet answer. Anyway, moving forward, all questions will be common questions. So first of all, I would like to ask to the three of you, what should be the ideal time to start interview-based preparations?
For internships in general, I cannot speak about placements, of course. Shubham and Angelica would be way more apt to speak about that. But for internships, I believe, I think 3 to 4 months of DSA prep is enough for OT rounds. As for the developer profile, there's programs like Engage or hackathons like Bajaj FinServe or anything that would basically just guarantee your internship directly. That is something that you can't really prepare for. it's something that you love doing, and then you can just go for it. As for OT or DSA specific rounds, I believe 3 to 4 months of targeted DSA is enough.
Yeah. Shruti is correct. I mean, there are two segments. If I have to classify it, there's this DSA which you have to practice, and there's this project, and you're shaping up your profile. So DSA, I started like I'll say course of DSA because I am still not interested into DSA. Like if I have to pass my time, I wouldn't solve questions on CPP and everything. But then I had to do it to crack OT and everything. So I 6 April till 3rd August, because not 3rd August, 7th August. It was like 4.5 months. So as Shruti said, 3 to 4 months should be like you should prepare for DSA if you don't know a lot about data structures and algorithms. So this is the part which you have to do for cracking OTs, right? If you have a very good you're technically sound, but then if you cannot crack OTs, that is of no use, right? Because you cannot enter into the interviews. So you have to do that. So when you are done, you are good with DSA and everything. You have to have your projects, very good projects, right? And that thing you cannot achieve in like within a month or so. You have to keep doing them. So projects and everything, you have to understand what technical side you like more. Is it a development side, or is it, let's say, artificial intelligence or ML side? You have to understand that. And then you have to put in a lot of effort to basically do your project from scratch, be it team projects, be it individual projects. So that comes with time. So talking about myself, I started with my projects the time lockdown started. So I did a lot of projects then. There were mostly individual projects only because I was doing with my own company, which I was interning at. So that was basically a startup. And then they gave me some projects. And in that topic, I was very interested. So I explored more, and then I did projects on my own on the basis of those topics. But since my projects were very good, but my DSA wasn't strong, so I couldn't crack many OTs of the companies which came for internships during my 3rd year. So that did disappoint me a lot. So I then started my preparation when the placement season was coming. That's like I said, April, May. So yeah, 4 or 5 months of that DSA preparation, and then your projects. If they are good enough, so you're good to go.
I'll mention one more thing here. This is something I annoyed Shubham for when I had my own interview. Um, my interview experience was a bit different from the rest of the people who got internships from our own campus, because I was directly recommended for an internship by my mentors based on my engaged project and my work ex in that 1 month that I worked with them, basically. My interview was a 1 hour supposedly HR round, but it went on to include a lot of system design questions, a lot of questions on the projects I had done. I did a fellowship with Google in my first year. Um, it was based on a research proposal that I submitted with them. It was under the Google Season of Docs program. I was grilled a lot on that. I was also asked to build a project idea that I had from scratch, and I was told to come up with the entire architecture in that single interview. And yeah, so system design is one of major thing that I was asked for, more so than, let's say, DSA or OOP basics, which is a staple in almost any interview. But yeah, I think that is also very important, especially if you're looking towards more of a complete developer profile. I'll let Shubham continue.
Okay. Well, anyway, all's well if the ends well.
So I'll be taking the next question. Now, this is kind of different for the people who got placed and for Shriti. So, Shriti, what do you plan on doing after college? And for Anjalika and Shubham, like, do you have long-term plans for staying in Microsoft, or like, what do you all plan on doing after that? Like, just a brief idea about your future, since I don't have anything about mine. So,
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. So
For the sake of this going public, I'd
before
like
getting
to stay in Microsoft for my entire life.
that's nice.
Yeah, that's my entire answer.
Yeah.
Others?
Yeah, so like I'll stay in Microsoft only as of now. मतलब मेरा ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि I have a proper plan after 3.5 years I will leave Microsoft. It's not like that, but then I have to like I like management as well as I said. So I want like I have thought of preparing for GMAT right now. I just need motivation to start preparing for that. So yeah, so I thought of giving GMAT right now because that score is applicable for 5 years. So if I get a good score, I can use it within 5 years. So if just in case if I think that I can do well, like better in a management field than in technical field, I'll try to switch. But then again, I feel that I can do well in technical as well because the thing is, I am interested in both the things. It's not like I'm only interested in management. So, and I'm very happy that I got into such a good tech giant company. So, abhi to no plans of obviously leaving Microsoft. So, yeah, I'll just try my hands in both the things.
On the pretext of this going public.
Thank you, Shubham. I didn't know, yeah.
Um, Shriti?
Oh, absolutely same answer as Shubham.
I don't think Microsoft will see our videos, but they'll be very happy with you all, I guess. Um, okay, so the next one is, I guess, for people like me. So we are actually like, they're like people who are extremely intimidated to take up coding because of like such competitiveness and stuff. So what would you recommend as a starting point for individuals like me? Like any one of you can answer.
Do you mean DSA specific interview prep or do you mean development in general?
No, like like normal coding. Like when I see other people doing itna sara stuff, I'm just scared to start because I'm already lagging behind. So what would be a good point to start?
From my perspective, interview prep is very, very different from actual development coding. Exceptionally different. There's a huge marked difference. Interview prep, you can start aram se as Anjtika agreed, 3 to 4 months before your interviews or your OTs are scheduled to happen. Development, to be honest, just pick a domain and go with it. If you like it, if you're into it, you will be motivated enough, you will be working hard enough. As soon as you start seeing church results, you keep building on them. And yeah, it works out. At least it did for me. So
Yeah, Shreen, I mean, it depends entirely on you, right? Like if you want to shape your technical side, there's no thing such as कि अभी placement आ रहा है, internship आ रहा है, I have to study for that. If that is not the constraint, then obviously dev side, like that coding is completely different. Like then you decide what domain you have to get into. Is it app development or web development or ML? So that coding is completely different, and that starts from very scratch, from very basic. Now, the other type of coding is
Also,
interview preparation. So, uska coding is completely different, and that you can start like 4 or 5 months before the placement process or your internship process starts. So, those two are completely different things. Yeah, Shubham.
like you have a lot of time to explore what you want. Like you can try and try and see for yourself how it works out for you. So by the time you are ready to be proficient in a skill, it's the right time to start building.
Okay, that gives me some hope.
Right
Uh,
now you don't need to be fixated about one thing. Like we did this, so you also have to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, following from the last question, I'd like to ask all three of you. In your opinion, how can one build a strong coding base? Of course, you three do have a very strong base. So I'd just like to ask you, how do you build something like that? Also, it would be really helpful if you could suggest some good resources for aspiring programmers. So
Interview
that's
preparation, you mean, right? Like, do you mean interview preparation or? basic
No, in general,
technical skills.
it's like a strong coding base. So from there only, like, could you suggest some good websites or maybe some courses?
All right, so okay, so I'll say about the interview preparation, and then I guess should can about approach was my research which basically covers pura DSA from top to bottom. So if you complete that course, I guess that's more than enough. But apart from I did interview bit also. Now interview bit is very like it has very selective questions. So you have to do them like if you want to be amongst the top people who are prepared for placements. So I guess you should do interview bit, and that's not a paid promotion. Uh, and then so yeah, GFG and interview bit were the main things I basically used. As Shubham again said, you have to prepare smartly. You don't have to do all the questions in the entire universe of DSC. You just have to prepare very smartly. You have to see what are the questions which are asked mostly by the interviewers, or which are the main questions which are asked in mostly all the online tests. So even if you're not understanding the thing, you are not understanding the concept, you can just Google it. You can just watch multiple YouTube. Those YouTubers have their own way of explaining. So YouTube, I used to YouTube a lot. Random questions. Let's say graph. Graph is a topic which many people hate. Like I guess almost everybody hates. If they like graphs right now, they must have hated graphs at some point in their life. So graph, I wasn't able to solve on my own. So I used to, Google very basic questions of graph, which will graph questions hote kaise hain. So I used to search on YouTube, and different people used to explain them in their own manner, and then I used to get a good understanding of the questions. So you can do that for any topic. You can do that for even arrays, for any kind of questions. And then after setting of data, you need to understand that what are the major questions, major chunk of questions which are important for your preparation. You just don't have to do all the questions. There's this sheet by I forgot the name of the YouTuber, but there's this 450 questions per sheet.
Babish.
So that has all the major questions. Ah, yes, yes, yes. So that is very helpful. Like I didn't basically saw the sheet. It had most of the questions which are asked in the interviews, right? So most of the important questions which were asked in the interview. So if you do that sheet also, it is like enough for the placement thing. And after that, it depends. It's all your logic and your smartness how you approach the thing. And that's for interview preparation.
Okay. And aside from that, I would also like to get you guys is what do you guys think about sites like HackerRank and LeetCode?
Oh, LeetCode, right.
Hacker,
Please
yeah,
continue.
Yeah, HackerRank is more for like if you want to start from scratch coding, like it will ask you to code up the question. One question will be print hello world. So itna basic se they start. So that's a very good website, and that's a very good site. And I would recommend that people who are in non-coding branches, so if they have to start coding and if they have time, they can start from HackerRank. I would suggest that they shouldn't start from GFG or lead code or interview with directly, because that can be highly demotivating, right? If you cannot code a very basic code, like when you see the submission rate of a question, and that's in thousands like sample cases, so it highly demotivates you. So HackerRank is really good in that thing. It really motivates you to code more, and that's a good site for us, I would guess. And LeetCode has many questions. So if you are amongst those people who solves like 50 questions daily, you can go for LeetCode. It entirely depends on you. I saw interview bit ke questions and LeetCode ke questions are very mixed up. Interview bit is more filtered than LeetCode. LeetCode is a mix up of GFG plus interview bit, I would say. So it's on you what you prefer.
Okay, thank you. I do feel HackerRank causes you to get disappointed in a different way. You solve a program with 5 lines and then you go to a discussion and someone has solved it in half a line. So it is a different kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
That happens in every platform.
Okay, guys. Okay, folks, we have reached
Plus,
the
plus.
final question of this interview. Thank you for dealing with us for an hour. So yeah, the last question is, if you had a chance to go back in time, what would you choose to do differently?
Or if you got a chance to be in the room with your past self, what advice would you give to yourself?
This is gonna be a little cheesy, but I would tell my past self to believe in themselves and to not give up. And that even if you get a little behind sometimes, or if you think you've gotten a little behind sometimes, it takes a very small amount of time to catch up if you keep working. But if you stop working, nobody can help you.
Yeah, I mean, uh, 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 the advice I did when you see others getting internships and others getting placed, I mean, that demotivates a lot. I mean, you then, like, let's say your XYZ friend gets an internship, and then you, at the back of your mind, you think, इस बंदे को कैसे मिल गया यार? इससे अच्छी तो मैं हूँ. ये लाइन सबके मन में आएगी, जो भी ऐसा internship और placement के लिए बैठेगा. But then these things happen, right? You just have to believe in yourself, as Shrivi said. It's not at all cheesy, bro. You actually have to believe in yourself, and you actually have to keep working. You have to believe that whatever you are doing, whatever input you are giving, it is to a very good placement. Right now, for example, during my internship, as Shubham said, in your third year you can be choosy with the companies. In your fourth year, at after a point you cannot be. So in the third year, many people think that fourth year तो ऐसा कुछ होगा नहीं, and at that time also I would suffer. So इससे better है कि कोई भी company I would get, and let's say internship मिल गया, so it's good, settle for life, उसे PPO मिल जाएगा and everything fine. But I would suggest, don't settle for less. If you think you're worthy enough for a better company than what is in front of you, then don't settle for less. Because placement time you will get an opportunity again, and at that time you will be more prepared. So this is for all the third years who will watch this YouTube, that just understand what your worth is, understand what you're capable of, and whatever your plans are for the future for preparing for placement season, and don't settle for less in your third year. And it's fine if you don't get an internship in third year. It's completely fine. That demotivates a lot if you don't get an internship. But then you have to believe that हो जाएगा, मतलब ऐसा 5-6 महीने पहले से प्रिपेयर करके हो जाएगा, आराम से हो जाएगा. So yeah, that's the thing.
Well, it felt
Yeah,
like you were
so for
giving
me, if I
advice
could
to
go back in
us.
time and
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Shubham, please continue.
yeah, so I was saying for me, it was like I would just say that don't feel guilty about enjoying your time. So in the last 2 years, I've felt I've given myself too much stress over like not doing anything productive and just roaming around, and I've actually cut people off for that as well. So like I just try to I just try to like convince myself that sometimes wasting time is okay or enjoying time is okay. Like you don't have to overexert and like pressure yourself into being productive all the time.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, folks. I really appreciate how all three of your answers kind of, in a way, built upon each other and basically gave us idea about the different facets of this one complex problem.
I'll add one more if I'm allowed to.
Sure, sure, sure.
Have good seniors.
Yes, yes, that was exact same thing I was gonna say. Like, keep in touch with your seniors, man. हर branch से possible हो, मतलब just keep in touch with your seniors who are like who can give you a good perspective, like who can help you a lot, who are willing to help you a lot. Just keep in touch with as many seniors as you can, because they are the best mentors you can get, because obviously they
Yes,
have been through whatever you are going through, right? Obviously.
exactly. And
So
for when you
brilliant.
need a shoulder to cry on and rant about how the
Yes,
interview went bad, there they
Uh,
are.
plus plus.
yeah, so I would be a little cheesy here myself. We do have excellent seniors, and
Oh,
yeah, I do feel really strongly about that sentiment about being in touch with your seniors.
yes, I can guarantee that about my juniors. We selected nice IEEE boys.
Yeah, they're actually super nice and helpful.
Yeah.
So with this, we have come to the end of the interview session, and we would like to thank like each and every one of you for giving us insightful views and for your time.
It was a
And
great experience for all of us. And to you, the viewers, if you enjoyed the video, press the like button, drop a comment, and also press the subscribe button. Ring the bell. We have many more interviews coming up for the future, so stay tuned. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Honestly, it was a very good experience talking to you guys.